don't know. I guess it depends, and I know that's the wrong answer, but I guess it depends on the individual state.
They both impair your senses, which make your driving a lot more dangerous.
Your reactions are just as slowed as you are when you drink alcohol. You won't be as prepared as like on the roads if you were sober.
I hear of more people driving high than I do driving drunk, but I don't know if that's any better or worse.
I know you're impaired both ways, so.
I just don't know like the level of impairment.
They're both definitely dangerous. I will never argue the fact that they're not. I do personally feel that alcohol is more dangerous, like you have less control in your driving.
Driving is a divided attention task. When you're impaired, whether it's drugs or alcohol, you can't focus on managing driving and managing distances. You anticipate things more slowly. Whether you should or shouldn't smoke pot or be impaired is one thing, but definitely getting behind the wheel is a risk. A collision involving impairment, whether it's drugs or alcohol, will have a more significant outcome. It will cause greater harm, more likely to cause a fatal crash, and you can't take it back. So it's so critical for people to plan ahead and use some strategy to say, okay, I'm the DD, or okay, I'm going to be smoking up if that's my choice of drug. Just don't drive.
Really, it's kind of an awkward situation because you know it's not right, but you still do it sometimes.
I wouldn't suggest to do that to anybody, and I'd be scared to sit with them.
No, definitely not.
Both of us. Like, I know it was really scary, like the one time, like the first time I can remember it, but I didn't realize that they were on weed like halfway through when we were driving, and I was like, oh my God. And then like I know sometimes like your friends just won't tell you, or like they'll joke about it kind of thing, and you're like, okay.
It comes
like,
off as a joke, like, oh yeah, I'm high by the way.
And you feel like uncomfortable like when you're in the car, but like you feel like awkward like saying something about it.
Yes, that has happened to me. Someone driving the vehicle was high at the time, and it was a very scary experience. They were constantly drifting slowly to the right of the lane and then back in. They would kind of check themselves, and then it just kept happening. I hated every second of it. I wish I didn't do it. So yeah, I'm never going to do that again. It was a very scary experience.
Even though there's a very small percentage of drivers who choose to drink and drive, drinking and driving poses a significant danger on Ontario's roads. In fact, every year, 1 in 5 road user fatalities involves a drinking driver. Collisions involving alcohol tend to be more severe than other collisions. Drugs are commonly detected in drivers who are killed on Ontario's roads. In fact, about 1 in 3 drivers who are killed test positive for at least one drug in their system. Every year in Ontario, there's about 150 road user fatalities in which drivers are using either drugs or alcohol. A very small percentage of young drivers actually choose to drive impaired. However, the ones that do pose a real and significant risk to road safety for all road users.
So I think they look at your like eyes, and I don't know what they do.
I don't know. They got a breath of leather for alcohol, but I don't know what they do for like other drugs.
Personally, I don't know how they would do that.
No idea.
I guess they would look into their eyes.
Check for things like potentially reaction time, touching the nose, walking a straight line, stuff like that. It's tricky though. I don't know that one, I'm sorry.
I don't know how they would do that. I've never even heard of an experience where someone's been tested for driving high.
If it's illegal, then they've got a way to find out if you're doing it. Like, you're not necessarily going to get away with it just because it's weed.
I'm actually curious.
Yeah, about that.
If a driver is stopped by the police and there is suspicion that there is drug in the body or that there is drug use going on, the officer can conduct standardized field sobriety testing. So that's an immediate roadside test that the police conduct on that driver to determine if that person is under the influence of alcohol or a drug or a combination of both. For testing drivers who are arrested for drug-impaired driving, it is a comprehensive 12-step program that is set out in the standards by the International Association of Chiefs of Police and is written within the Criminal Code of Canada. So the drug recognition expert follows a standardized and systemic process to take a driver who has been arrested for drug-impaired driving through the test. An opinion can be rendered whether or not that person is in fact impaired, and if so, is it by the consumption of a drug, at which point a bodily substance demand can be made for that driver to produce a sample of their blood or their urine. All of the drugs out there, which when taken into the body can impair a person's ability to operate a motor vehicle, are broken down into 7 broad categories based on their observable signs and symptomologies. So those are broken down into those categories because of what we would expect to see when we are testing a person. There's a big misconception out there that it makes me concentrate or it makes me a better or safer driver. Cannabis is not a performance-enhancing drug. It is absolutely a substance that impairs. If you are going to be consuming this drug, don't drive.
What we do at the Center of Forensic Sciences is look for alcohol, drugs, and poisons in a variety of cases. Criminal cases like impaired driving and homicides. In impaired driving cases, we usually get either blood or urine for analysis. And in those cases where we look for drugs, we run a variety of tests that look for potentially thousands of different drugs that could be present in those samples. So a really large variety of drugs with many different properties can be found. In Ontario, in our lab at the Center of Forensic Sciences, this past year we've found over 120 different drugs in impaired driving cases. In court cases, toxicologists are usually asked to describe what the drug findings are. And then what they have to describe is whether or not that drug can impair a person's ability to drive, and if so, how it does that.
No, I don't actually know what they are.
Probably a fine or maybe nothing, I don't know.
Something like impaired driving or I don't know.
You might get your driver's license taken away for a period of time, but I'm not really sure about smoking.
No.
No, not at all.
Well, I'd like to hope it'd be the same as driving under the influence of alcohol, because it's the same sort of thing. You're driving impaired.
I'm not sure what they are, but I think they should be just as grave as driving under the influence of alcohol, personally.
I don't know if it's the same as drinking, but I don't even know if it's like demerit points or...
It's definitely like being under the influence, so I feel like you would lose your license.
I'm not sure. I think it's a year with a suspended license. And I know one of my friends has a DUI, and he hasn't been able to drive for a year, so I think it's a year, and then you get your license back.
There's essentially 3 different types of impaired driving charges. There's impaired by alcohol, impaired driving by drug, and driving with over the legal limit of alcohol in your body. I take all of the evidence that the police have gathered, and that evidence is things like bad driving, slurred speech, red glassy eyes, bloodshot eyes, any evidence that proves that a person is impaired while they're in operation of a motor vehicle. The same goes for impaired by drug. Once the officer has completely concluded his investigation, then all of that evidence then comes to me to put before the court. There is a mandatory minimum sentence of at least $1,000 for your first conviction of impaired driving. The individual convicted is going to have their license taken away for a year by the court. You get a criminal conviction. So that is a conviction that stays on somebody's criminal record. Drug-impaired driving is not new. Drug-impaired driving is something that we as prosecutors and the police as the investigators of criminal offenses have been prosecuting and investigating for a long time now.
Yeah, we live, 16 years without driving, and it seems like we never need to drive. But once you start driving, it's just like walking, you know? It's like we need it in our lives, we need to get places. So it'd be terrible if I lost my driver's license.
Like I need my license, it's essential for me.
It'd be pretty bad. I mean, I wouldn't have a way to get to work, make money or anything like that. I'd always have to ask for rides, take public transit. It's a hassle.
Basically, like, half my life is over because, like, I think that's very important nowadays.
I don't think I could live without my license. I got it like right away, and like I don't think I ever would wait if I was 16 again. Like, I need my license.
We're seeing that younger demographics tend to have a bit of a different attitude, especially when it comes to drugs, and are more likely to think that they drive the same or better, which is this is just not supported. It's not just the conviction itself, which is horrible enough, and the criminal record. It's the fact that it impacts you for so long in other areas, like getting car insurance. An impaired driving conviction would impact your insurance tremendously. It could mean you lose coverage when it comes time to renewal. You would have to pay exorbitantly high fees once you find an insurance company who will insure you, and it means that you have no coverage.
If you're a young or novice driver, so if you're 21 and under, or you just have your G1 and G2 license, you're actually not allowed to have any alcohol in your system. It is zero tolerance for those drivers, and with recent legislation, it is the same with drugs. Over the past 30 years, we have seen a steady decline in alcohol-impaired driving fatalities. Unfortunately, with drug-impaired driving right now, because it is becoming a much larger issue, we are starting to see the numbers go up a bit. So we want to encourage people that with drug-impaired driving, it's the same with alcohol-impaired driving. You have to plan ahead, you have to have a designated driver, public transit, taking a cab, things like that to help get you home safe. It's your responsibility and your responsibility to other road users as well.
Well, it's super important to me. I know I have to drive everywhere. I just got my G license, so I'm like a full driver, but yeah, I need my license for sure.
It's definitely a privilege, something you have to earn. I'm glad that I have a license. I like being able to drive around myself and get where I need to go.
Yeah, and there's sort of trust, because it's not just yourself, but everyone else on the street is trusting you. So if you have a driver's license, it's everyone who's trusting you, and your safety's in everyone's hands.
It helps me like get to work, you know, stuff like that. Like visit my friends, visit my girlfriend, stuff like that. Like it's a good privilege to have.
I think freedom.
Oh my god, I drive so much. Like just even like just being a student, like driving is like the best
Coming
thing.
to the library, like going
Yeah,
to the
we
Tim's
drove
drive
to
through like on the
library,
way
like-
here, just like the freedom to like do stuff that
Yeah,
like
there's such a freedom with it.
It definitely allows me to go where I want to go. Like it's a freedom, you know?